Okay guys, today we're going to learn how to factor trinomials. It says the following expression is in standard form. Find what the contents of the parentheses were before the expression was FOILed. Include the correct signs, numbers, and variables. Now this is how most teachers teach factoring. This is not the way I'm going to teach it. They would have you guess what times what gives you 8x squared. Well, it could be 1x and 8x. I'm going to go with 4x and 2x. And then you skip over that and you look at -6. What times what could be -6? Well, you know it's got to be a positive and a negative to get a negative product. And I'm actually going to go 2 and 3. Now to see if that's right, we need to do the FOIL. So 4x times 2x, 4x times -3, 2 times 2x, and 2 times -3. Okay, so my products are 8x to the second, -12x, positive 4x, and -6. Okay, so we add those, and that's going to be -8x. Okay, so we got 8x squared minus 8x minus 6. Okay, that is not, and by the way, that actually is right, because it matched up to what we started with. Now the only reason I got that right is because I knew that was the answer before I started the problem. Obviously that's going to be a lot harder when we don't know the answer right away. So that's not a good way to really learn that. Okay, a better way to learn it is going to be using this sheet here, the way I'm going to teach it. So it says solve the equation. Well, since x is to the second, there's two answers. And since I have an x to the second and an x to the first, we need to use some variation of factoring here. But unlike yesterday, GCF is not going to do me any good, because 1, 11, and 28, you can't divide those down, and you don't have x on every coefficient. 28's empty. So there's no GCF. Well, this is a trinomial, so what I use on trinomials is something called the T-chart. Okay, so A, B, C. Okay, I always label my coefficients A, B, C, just like that. Okay, so what I need to do is find the product of my A and C. You always are going to find that. So the product of +1 and +28 is +28. Now what I need to do is find two factors of +28 that make +11. Now if that sounded confusing, here's a way to remember it. Whenever I get a positive product there, I'm going to be looking for a sum of the B coefficient's absolute value. So I would be looking for a sum, and the absolute value of 11 is 11. So 1 and 28 are factors of 28, but they don't make a sum of 11. 2 and 14 are factors of 28, but they don't make a sum of 11 either. Divided by 3 is a decimal. 28 divided by 4 is 7. 4 plus 7 finally gives me 11. Okay? Now when I get those, I have to ask myself, when I find it, if my A equals 1. Yes, it does. So when A equals 1, it's pretty much a given that you're just going to have two parentheses, and then you're going to have x times x, because x times x is 1x squared. That's all, the only thing it could be. And then I'm going to use the 4 and the 7. Now I got to get my signs right. Now these have to make +11. So that means we obviously have to have more positive, so positive on the 7. And whenever I have a sum, the signs need to be the same. They need to be identical. So if that's a plus, that's going to be a +2. So if you just look at it, you know that's x squared, and then you know you got 7x and 4x to make 11x, and then 4 times 7 is 28. So I can find the answer. So x plus 4 could equal 0. X plus 7 could equal 0. So I minus 4, and I get -4. I minus 7, my other solution is -7. Okay? -4, -7. Okay, next one. There's two answers here. Again, we have to use, whenever I know there's two kinds of it, more than one kind of x, you're going to need to use some sort of factoring. So there is no GCF in this. There's not really going to be GCFs until a certain point. A, B, C, and then I make a table. But you got to know what to do with the table. You take 8, 1 times 21 is positive 21. And if I got a positive up here, I'm going to look for a sum of the B coefficients absolute values. So that would be a sum of absolute value negative 10 is 10. Okay. So 21 divided by 1 is 21. That's not a sum of 10. 21 divided by 2 is a decimal. 21 divided by 3 is 7. 3 and there we go. Okay. So I ask myself, is my A equal to 1? Yes, again it is, so yes. So I go ahead and I just need 2 parentheses. So I got 1x a second, so that's x and x. 3 and 7. Now, these have to add up to negative 10 this time, so I have to have more negative than I do positive. So 7's negative. And again, if I'm finding a sum, the signs have to be identical. Okay, a lot of people say, oh, I'm finding a sum, so I put plus. No, that doesn't mean that's a plus. That just means the signs have to be identical. So if we have a minus, that's going to have to be a minus 2. Makes sense. X squared, negative 7 and negative 3x, make negative 10x, and then 21. So x minus 3 could equal 0, or x minus 7 could equal 0. So when I plus 3 to both sides, I get 3. When I plus 7 to both sides, I get 7. 3 and 7. Okay. X to the second power minus 7x minus 60 equals 0. Again, we have two answers. Okay. That's, again, we got to use some form of factoring because of those two different kinds of x's. So there is no GCF. So A, B, C. So I have to find the product of A and C. So 1 times negative 60 is negative 60. That's going to make a difference of 7. So 1 and 60. 2 and 30. So far I'm nowhere close to a difference of 7. 60 divided by 3 is 20, that's 17. 4 and 15. 50 minus 4 is 11. Closer to 7. 60 divided by 5 is 12. There we go. Okay. So is A equal to 1? Again, it is. So yes. So I write my things. It could be equal to 0, so I know that's x times x, and then we're going to use the factors 5 and 12 for the 60. Okay, so minus on him, and then difference. When it's a difference, the signs will not be identical, they'll be the opposite. Okay, so I can see positive 5 and negative 12 would make negative 7x, because we'd have x squared, negative 12x, positive 5x is negative 7x. And then 5 times negative 12 is negative 60. So x plus 5 equals 0. X minus 12 equals 0. Minus 5, I get negative 5. Plus 12, I get 12. Okay, so negative 5 and positive 12. Okay, next problem, negative x a second minus 3x plus 54 equals 0. So there's two answers. Okay, those two things, you know what that means. It means we need to do some form of factoring. Now there actually is going to be a GCF here, because whenever my leading coefficient's negative, I need to put it negative. Now I know we can't divide 1, 3, and 54 down. I also know we don't have x on everything, so really all they have is this negative. But I do have the negative, so I need to do a GCF of just negative 1. Okay, so I'm going to make this little box here. I'm going to pull negative 1 out. Okay, so I did have a GCF on that one. So it's going to be 1x squared plus 3x minus 54. Okay, now I have to go to my table. When I do my table, now I'm going to use these three coefficients. So 1 times negative 54 is negative 54, so I'm looking for a difference that would equal the absolute value of b, which is 3. So 154, 2 and 27, that's 25. 54 divided by 3 is 18. 18 minus 3, no, 18 minus 4 is not a factor. 5 is not a factor. 6 and 9, there we go. Okay? So now I make this into 2 parentheses. You're like, well, what do you do at the negative 1? If it doesn't have an x with it, which it doesn't, you just kind of forget it. So I know this is x times x because a is equal to 1, and then 6 and 9. So I got plus 3x, so that means we have to have more positive than negative. And then difference means they're opposite, okay? So x minus 6 equals 0, or x plus 9 equals 0. Plus 6, I get 6 for my first answer. Minus 9, I get negative 9 for my second. Okay, so those are the 2 answers. Now what you need to do is pause the video and then go do numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, and then when you're done with 4, you'll come back. Remember, we need to do a GCF of negative 1 here. Okay, otherwise nothing. It's not going to work out the way I want. Okay, now here's the next problem. I don't write this down, but this time it's a little different. We're not going to be able to just go x times x, because x times x is not 5x squared. There's a 5 there, okay? So obviously that a is not a 1, but we're still going to kind of do the same thing, but there's going to be a major difference in how we get this. So first, you know that there's 2 answers. We don't have a negative, we don't have x on everything, and we can't really divide 5, 17, and 6 down, so there's no GCF. Then I go to my table. So I take a times c. 5 times positive 6 is positive 30, so that's a positive, so we're going to look for a sum of 17. Okay. So 1 and 30, no. 30 divided by 2 is 15. There you go, sum of 17. Now, here's my question. Is the a equal to 1? And that answer is no, it's not. So here's how I deal that when it's not, to get this to factor out right. I'm going to make 2 sets of parentheses, 4 in total. My equal 0 is going to be down here. What I do is I put xx, but instead of just xx, I'm going to put the coefficient, the a coefficient, in front of both of them. Okay. Then I'm going to use the 2 and the 15. Now keep in mind they have to make negative 17, so that I have to have more minus. And a sum is a sum, so they'll have to be both the same thing. So since I have minus here, I put minus there. Now, what I do now is divide down. 5 and 2 cannot be divided down by an integer, so we're going to keep that as 5. That factor is going to stay 5x minus 2, and then I'm going to put an x through that. We can divide these both by 5, so that's going to be x minus 3. Okay? And lo and behold, this is right, because 5x squared would be negative 15x, and negative 2x makes negative 17x. And positive 6. Okay, so that's good. So 5x minus 2 equals 0, x minus 3 equals 0. So I plus 3, I get 3 for the first answer. Then I plus 2, I get 5 times x equals 2, and then I divide by 5. And I'm just going to leave that 2/5. I'm going to leave it in fraction form. So 3 and 2/5 are the answer for x. Okay, 2x the second plus 11x plus 12 equals 0. We have 2 answers here. GCF, you wouldn't have one. There's not a negative. You don't have x on everything. And 2, 11, and 12, so that's no. So A, B, C. So I take 2 times 12 is positive 24. That's a sum of 11. So 1 and 24, no, it's 25. 24 divided by 2 is 12, no, that's 14. 24 divided by 3 is 8, so that's 11. Okay. Alright, so is my A equal to 1? No. Okay. So I'm going to make 4 parentheses. Okay, so XX, and I'm going to apply the A coefficient to both these. Now, it's not going to stay that way, okay? I know that, okay? I'll have to divide one, if not both of them, down. So 3 and 8 from the table. Now, I got positive 11, so I have to have more positive, and a sum means they're both positive. So 2x plus 3, we're going to keep that like it is, because you can't reduce that. Now, I can divide these both by 2. Okay, so it's going to become x plus 4. And lo and behold, we got 2x squared, 8x and 3x make 11x and 12. So 2x plus 3 equals 0, x plus 4 equals 0. So I take 3 away, I get negative 3, then I divide by 2. I'm just going to leave that. You can write negative 1.5 if you want, or you can just leave it negative 3 over 2 if it doesn't divide evenly. Then I have negative 4 here. Okay, so those are your two solutions. Next up, there's no GCF. Because you don't have a negative, you don't have x on everything, and you can't divide 4, 4, and 3 down by any common factors, so that's a no-go. So I take 4 times negative 3 is negative 12. That's going to be a difference of 4, okay? 1, 12, nope. 2, 6, there you go, okay? A equals 1, question mark, no, A does not, so we need 4 parentheses in order to get this right, make sure I get it right. So XX, whatever the A is, I'm going to apply in front of both of these, and then I'm going to use 2 and 6. So remember, these have to add up to negative 4, so you have to have more negative, and difference means you have to have opposite signs, okay? So if we can divide here by 2, so it becomes 2x plus 1, both those by 2, and both those by 2, so that's 2x minus 3. Okay, and lo and behold, we got 4x squared, we got negative 6x and positive 2x, that would make negative 4x and negative 3. So 2 times x plus 1 equals 0, 2 times x minus 3 equals 0. So I subtract 1, I get negative 1, divide by 2. You can write negative 0.5 or negative half. 2 times x equals 3, divide by 2. You can write 1.5 or just keep it as 3 over 2. It's up to you. Okay, this next one. GCF, no. No way. Don't have a negative, don't have x on everything, and 7, 8, and 12. No. So I take A times C. 7 times negative 12 is negative 84, a little bit of a tough one. So it's negative product. I'm looking for a difference that equals 8. 1 and 84, nope. 2 and 42, nope. 3 and 21, it's 18. 4 and 17, that's 13. 5 is a decimal. 6 and 14, there we go. Okay. A equals 1, no. A is equal to 7, okay? So when I make my 4 parentheses, I'm going to put 7 in front of the x's. So 7, 7. 6, 14. We got these have to make negative 8, so you got to have more minus, and a difference would mean the signs have to be different. So that's a minus, that's a plus. So we're going to keep that as 7x plus 6. Cross that out, and then we can divide these both by 7. So that's x minus 2. Cross that out. got this right. 7x squared, negative 14x, positive 6x gets negative 8x, and then negative 12. So 7 times x plus 6 equals 0. X minus 2 equals 0. So I minus 6. 7 times x is negative 6, divided by 7, and we get negative 6 over 7. Plus 2, I get 2. Okay. Alright, you can pause the video and then do number 4, 5, 6, 7. No, never mind, yeah, these back ones. Actually, you'll skip number 4, do 5, 6, 7. Go do number 4 after you pause it and continue. Okay, now you're asking, number 4 is kind of a tough one, okay? Here's what I'm going to do. There are 2 answers. That's how I want you to do that problem number 4. You look for a GCF. Well, I have a negative in front first off. I don't have x on everything. Now let's check the smallest coefficient, 2. Now I think I can divide all those by 2. Okay? So I can do that. Okay? So space parentheses, and I factor out at negative 2. So I got to underline these and divide them all by negative 2, and then I'm going to get 2x to the second, a minus 1x, and a minus 15. Okay. Now, after that, what I'm going to do is make a box that's split in half with a t-table. So I take 2 times negative 15 is negative 30, so I'd be looking for a difference that equals 1. 1 and 30, no. 2 and 15, nope. 3 and 10, nope. 4 is a decimal. 5 and 6, bingo. Now, is a equal to 1? No, a equals 2, okay? So I'm going to need 4 parentheses here. Okay, so I put x, but I need to apply that 2 in front of each x, and then we're going to go 5, 6. So we got, these have to add up to negative 1, so we need a bigger negative, and difference means they're opposite. So 2x plus 5, that's going to stay the same. Then we can divide these by 2, so that's x minus 3. Okay. Now our GCF's up here is negative 2. You want to pull that down, but if it doesn't have an x, get rid of it, which it didn't. Okay. So 2x plus 5 equals 0, x minus 3 equals 0. So I minus 5, and I get 2x is negative 5. Then I divide by 2. That's going to be negative 5 over 2, or negative 2.5 if you choose to divide. Then I add 3, and I get 3. Okay, next problem. There's 2 answers. Now, when I'm going to factor, everything's got to be moved to one side. So this minus 70 is going to come over here. So I now have 5x to the second plus 25x minus 70 equals 0. Okay, now I look for a GCF. I don't have a negative in front. I don't have x on everything. But I'm pretty sure I can divide all those by 5. So 5 is the GCF. Okay, so I yank out a 5. Now I go divide by 5. And I get 1x to the second plus 5x minus 70 divided by 5 is 14. Okay, so there's my GCF. Now I make a T box. Okay, I split it in half with a T, and is a equal to 1? Yes. Okay, so 1 times negative 14 is negative 14, so I'd be searching for a difference of 5. So 1 and 14, that's a difference of 13. 2 and 7, that's a difference of 5. Okay, so if your a equals 1, you got 2 parentheses, x, 2, 7, plus on 7, and difference means there'll be different signs. So if I got a plus 7 there, minus on that one. Now my GCF 5 needs to come down, but if it doesn't have an x, it's not important for solving the equation. It's just x minus 2 equals 0, x plus 7 equals 0. Plus 2, I get 2. Minus 7, I get negative 7. So those are my two answers. Okay, and then the last one, calculate the equations. X-intercepts is a fancy way of saying solve it. There's two answers. You're going to have to make sure everything's on one side. It is. Okay, so GCF. Now, first thing, you got a negative in front. Do you have X on everything? No. So 7, 1, and 7. Can I divide all these by 7? Yes, I can. Okay. So I make my box. Negative 7 gets pulled out, and then we divide all these by negative 7. So this can be 1x to the second minus 1x minus 2. Okay. Now I make a thing for the t. Is a equal to 1? Yes, actually it is. Okay. So 1 times negative 2 is negative 2. Difference of 1. 1 and 2. Boom. Okay. A equals 1. Sure it does. So if A is 1, you got x, 1, 2. Now minus, you pull down the minus, okay? And difference means you have plus. So x plus 1 equals, x plus 1 equals 0, x minus 2 equals 0. So minus 1, I get negative 1. Plus 2, I get 2. Okay. Okay, that's what I have to say today.